Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to present to you tonight Hildegarde Kirkland.
Good evening. I'm Hildegarde Kirkland. It's August of 1985. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, where I've lived for over 20 years in Mount Sinai Hospital. I've been here for 2 weeks. Dr. Miller walks into the room with his hands in his lab coat jacket, stands at the foot of my bed, and looks at me and says, "We know what's wrong with you. You have lupus. Do you have any questions?" When I hear the word lupus, the first thing that comes to my mind is Aunt Irene died from lupus. And I've got all kinds of thoughts going through my head. So I look at him and I says, "No, I don't have any questions." He turns around and walks out the room. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm 28 years old. I'm just starting to really enjoy life. I have a 5-year-old son. I've just gone through a divorce, but I'm really, learning to get out. I'm partying, having a good time, going to the beach with my friends and relatives, having fun. And now this man is coming here and told me that I'm gonna die. And the tears just start pouring down my face. And my mom walks into the room. She had come in from Detroit when, she found out I was in the hospital to be there for me, to give me support. And she looks at me and she says, "What's wrong?" And I just look at her and I blurt out, "Dr. Miller just told me I'm gonna die." And she looks at me and she turns around and walks out the room. And I'm sitting here just, crying, got all kinds of thoughts going through my head. Am I gonna have enough time to do this? Am I gonna have enough time to do that? Am I gonna see my son grow up? And she comes back into the room, she sits on the bed, and she looks at me and she says, "Dr. Miller did not tell you you're going to die. He told you that you have lupus. I know that your Aunt Irene died from lupus, but you have to remember, she had 8 kids, and her husband died. She was under a lot of stress. You are young. We are going to beat this. We're not going to let this you're going to be strong. You're going to make it through this." Over the next few days, they put me on all kinds of medications. They were telling me things I could and couldn't do. And, it was, just a whole list of stuff. The one medication they put me on is prednisone. It's a steroid. It causes weight gain. It causes your face to swell up, to look like, they call it moon face. It can cause mood swings, and in some cases it has caused people to develop diabetes. I was on high doses of prednisone and a whole lot of other medications. I started to swell up. I felt like my body was betraying me. Went home and found out that I would have to learn to limit my amount of time in the sunlight, because sun's not good for you. If you have lupus, it can cause you to flare up. And it was just an adjustment. In October of 1985, I ended up being in Mount Sinai Hospital for 40 days. I was having side effects from medications as well as lupus-related issues. My mom would come in on the weekend to see me, but she had to work, so she couldn't be there all the time. I remember she called me, and this was like going on the 38th day, and I told her, "I don't want to be here anymore. Come get me. I want to come back to Detroit. I don't want to stay here." My son was staying with his dad, so I didn't have to worry about, having to take care of him. She brought me back here to Detroit, and they took me to Henry Ford Hospital, where they took me off all of the medications except the prednisone. With it being a steroid, you have to be tapered off of it. You can't just stop taking it or you would have more problems than you did before. They told me they had to do a kidney biopsy. And when they did this biopsy, I was told that 3 types of lupus had affected my kidneys, and my filter between my lupus and my bladder was basically gone. Chances were I was going to end up on dialysis or have to have a kidney transplant within the next 10 years. Thinking about what they had just told me and then looking at how my body was bloated, and I didn't even recognize myself looking in the mirror, I began to give up hope and question whether or not it was worth it for me to even continue living. I couldn't do things that I was used to doing. I was independent. I didn't like asking people to do things for me, and now I had to depend on people to feed me, take care of me, and just do simple things for me because I couldn't do it. Around Christmas time, my 5-year-old son came to spend the holiday with me. He was sitting on my bed talking to me, telling me about his first day of kindergarten, all these wonderful things that he was learning. And I'm thinking I hadn't been there for him the first day of school. I didn't get to hear him read a book all the way through the first time. I didn't get to teach him to tie his shoes. And I basically missed out on a lot of things that I thought were very important to me. Well, they were very important to me. As he was sitting there talking, I thought about it and I said, I do have something worth living for. I want to live to see him grow up. I want to see him graduate from high school. I want to see him graduate from college. I want to see him get married, have kids, spoil his kids, and hopefully spoil their kids. And this is something that I want to do, so I'm going to beat this lupus thing. I'm not going to let it control me. Now, my mom and friends and a few relatives had gotten it in their head that they were going to talk me into applying for disability and going on permanent disability because, I had lupus and I couldn't do anything. They sat down and had a quote-unquote intervention telling me, that this is what we were going to do. We're going to take you to the Social Security Bureau. You're going to do all of this. I looked at them and told them, I appreciate what you all are trying to do, but I'm going back to Ohio, and I'm going to go back to work. If I find I can't work, then I'll go out on disability. But I'm going to try. I have to try. I can't just give up like this. This was in February of 1986. I went back to work, had a few issues with the lupus, but overall I've done pretty good. I got to see my son graduate from high school. He's graduated from college. He was married. He's divorced now, but I have 2 beautiful granddaughters. And I'm looking forward to being around to see them grow up. One thing about having an autoimmune disease is people look at you and they tell you, oh, you look fine. You don't look like anything's wrong with you. If I had a nickel for every time someone told me that, I'd be rich. I've had people look at you if you have a handicap sticker or, just judge you like, okay, you're just doing that because you just don't want to park here or there. One incident was I was parked in a handicapped spot at a grocery store. I had come out, put my groceries in the car, I'm getting ready to back out, and this car blocks me in the parking spot. This lady gets out, knocks on my window, demands to see my handicap placard. I looked at her and told her I don't have one. Mind you, my license plate's the handicap plate. Well, I'm going to call the police because you don't look handicapped. So I looked at her and I said, I suppose people tell you you look intelligent all the time. Okay, she gets on her phone. She calls the police. Policeman comes up. knocks on the window because I'm still sitting here. You know, it's like, okay, I got to go through all of this. He knocks on the window. He asked me, do you have a handicap placard? And I looked at him and I said, no. Well, I need your driver's license. I'm writing you a ticket. And I looked at him. I said, you know what? I'd like to have a supervisor here. Could you just bring a supervisor or call a supervisor? I would like a supervisor here. Well, why do you want a supervisor? I said, because she's stupid and you're dumb. Okay? Supervisor gets there. By now, I've gotten out the car. Supervisor says, ma'am, what's the problem? I says, well, he is writing me a ticket for not having a handicap placard. She kidnapped me. She blocked me in this spot. She stopped me from going where I needed to go, so she's kidnapped me. I've been kidnapped. No one has looked at the plate on my car. And he looks, he goes back there, he calls the officer back there. The officer looks, face turns beet red. And needless to say, that officer will always look before he starts writing a ticket, and that woman will never block anyone in a parking spot again. I have learned to adjust my life or make transformations with my life. I cannot do a lot of things that I used to do. I can't go lay out on the beach in the sun and enjoy the sunlight. But with sunblock and, hold on 1 minute. Hats. Big hats. I have a lot of these. I can sit out and enjoy the sun. I can walk in the sun. I can do a lot of things because I look good in these hats. And I have lupus, but lupus does not have me. Thank you.
There she goes. Oh, it was worth waiting for that story.